Hi, I'm Emma Corrin and I'm here with British GQ to do an action replay of my favourite scenes from The Crown Season 4. I haven't actually seen this episode before. The other one, I think that I'll be talking about I have, but I haven't actually ever seen this before, so this is terrifying, guys.
Good morning, ma'am. 5:30?
This is the first scene that I ever filmed, ever, for the series. And we were in Scotland, and I'd gone up to Scotland, and they'd already been filming for quite a while. I remember it was so strange, and they had to remind themselves that I think they were like about to say action. They were like, wait, this is Emma's first day. But it was also a very chill thing to start with because it's just me in bed, waking up. So.
I notice the Duke of Edinburgh has requested you accompany him stalking this morning.
Gosh. All right.
Will you be needing anything?
Well, like what?
I just thought, in case you have no outdoor shoes.
Only brought outdoor shoes.
Context to this is that, so there's what was known as like the Balmoral Test. So whenever the royal family kind of met anyone new, I guess like you see in the episode with the Thatchers and then with Diana, Balmoral was kind of like where they always felt at home and where they can like, they don't wear anything like fancy, they can go around in like wellies and just do whatever. And so they used to bring these guests there to kind of like test them out. And it's great because Diana has been brought up in such a way that she knows exactly what is going to be demanded of her at Balmoral. She knows that she's been brought here as kind of like her screening test, and if she passes, then, you know, she has a chance with Charles, and if she doesn't, she won't have a chance. So the stakes are very high, but it was fun. I remember talking to Peter, who writes the series. You know, she's very much aware of, you know, her charm and how to use it in a really lovely way. Which is fun. And she knows that, you know, when Philip invites her out stalking, it's like a massive compliment and B, like a massive chance for her to win him over. And it's nice because even though she's incredibly sweet, I love how in this you kind of get a sense that she's not entirely, like, she's not naive in this. She knows exactly how to win him over to get what she wants, which is quite fun. It was a quite nice edge to play with, I guess.
I apologize for the early start, but there's a reason I asked you to join me this morning. It's great excitement gripping the household.
Oh yes, the stag. It's all anyone could talk about at dinner last night.
I don't mean about the stag. I mean about you.
It also, if you think about it, must have been incredibly strange that everyone there is aware, and you are aware, that you are basically staying somewhere to be observed the entire time, and everything you do is going to be observed. It must have been stressful.
You sure this isn't too wet?
No, I love a good watering.
You don't mind a bit of mud?
Muckier the better.
And this is really funny because Diana, I'm sure she liked going outside when she was younger. She's like very Sloaney, very much from Earl's Court, likes going out with her friends for like lunches, dinners, etc. I don't think that the countryside was really her natural habitat. But she's like, yeah, I'm gonna get stuck in. I guess we've all been there, right? Doing things like this for people we like. Well, maybe not exactly this, but you know.
Where do you live now?
London, Earl's Court, in a flat with 3 girlfriends. I'm the bossy landlady.
Are you bossy?
I like things to be neat and tidy.
Quite right, so do I.
Does that come from the army, sir?
The Navy, and I'm the one asking the questions.
I think this is a great example of kind of, it captures that part of Diana that was so spontaneous and very much basically up for anything, which I think the royal family, at least in our show, didn't really get that much. You know, she's not daunted, I don't think, in this, which, I mean, I'm sure she was underneath, but it was nice to play her, you know, her feistiness and her, I don't know, her just mucking in, which was a lovely thing, you know, at this stage. While we were filming the whole thing, throughout all of it, Josh and I had to be very mindful not to play the ending, not to play the tragedy. And it was, I really enjoyed these early episodes, 1, 2, and then I guess the beginning of 3, where, you know, there is no tragedy to play really for her. And it's kind of it was a bittersweet thing, really honestly capturing that joyfulness and like that pure joyfulness and excitement and hope that she had. And you know, it was really interesting to build that up to then get to a point that, you know, I think you see in episode 3 where she suddenly starts to realise that the fairy tale isn't exactly how she thought it would be. And then to suddenly, you know, and then it's then interesting when you watch back to these, when you see these earlier episodes, and it makes, yeah, it's sad, I suppose, but it makes these moments really sweet. I think what comes across, or what I certainly really tried to capture, was like the authenticity of her spirit, I guess, of like adventure and how she was, you know, happy to take part and that kind of thing.
Actually, I do quite enjoy cleaning. And ironing. God, does that make me tragic?
No, it makes you fascinating. I can't wait to discuss it further.
Look.
Oh, yes.
And of course, Diana spotting the deer at this moment is like, she's won. It's a hole-in-one for her. This was horrible. It was so cold. We were like crawling through this marshland. Like, it doesn't look like it was literally like swampland. It was horrible. And also, I have really bad asthma, and it was like September, and I don't know what, but there was like a lot of pollen and a lot of like grass seeds flying around, and I had like this huge asthma attack in the middle of the in the middle of shooting. And because it was like my first week, I obviously didn't want to make a big thing out of anything, and so I just remember feeling like, oh my god, I can't breathe. But then they were still rolling, and I was like increasingly like. I still didn't want to do anything, and then eventually I had to be like, please, someone help me. It was amazing. The scenery in Scotland was just mad. And it felt so like absolutely mental to have like this entire film crew in the middle of nowhere. It was incredibly special. I'm very unelegant when I crawl, and I...
It's swirling. I see the right.
It's the left.
I think there was maybe some, I might be completely wrong, but I think I remember talking to Paul, who directed the episode, and Peter a bit about like the symbolism of the deer in this episode. I don't think it's meant to symbolise Diana, but at the end of the episode when the stag's head is being mounted, or they're in, I think that's, I don't know, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if they've included that, but that was in the script. And there was some symbolism about like, oh yeah, because after this, they've shot the deer, and then Philip and Charles have a conversation, and Philip's like, well, obviously you're gonna ask her to marry you. And Charles is, you know, says, well, I mean, she's lovely, but I don't know if I can do that. Isn't that a bit fast? And Philip's like, what are you talking about? She's perfect. So this like deer is there, I think it's being skinned or something, and they're talking about this, they're having this conversation, and you very much feel like Charles's control of his life is about to be taken away, just as, I guess, the same thing happened to the deer. And then when it's mounted, I don't know if that is included, but I think there was meant to be some symbolism where, yeah, between like Diana and Charles and deer, and people taking control of other, you know, the destiny, I suppose, of other things, and interfering, man interfering with nature, with the natural process of things, I suppose. Interesting. So at this point, we're in episode 3, Fairy Tale, and they're engaged, the engagement's been announced, and Charles has gone off to either Australia or New Zealand. He was doing a tour for like 6 weeks, and like just after they got engaged, and she's been left on her own in the palace, and she's kind of been expecting, I suppose, that she's effectively joined this new family and that there would be a lot of warmth and support and excitement, and instead she finds herself alone. And the only contact she gets throughout the whole period of time is from Camilla, who invites her to lunch. And at this point, Diana's becoming more and more aware that Charles and Camilla are continuing to see each other. They're like, yeah, that is a thing. And at this point, she's just found, they've had their lunch, and she's just found the sketches for a bracelet that Charles is having made with him and Camilla's initials. And she then realises that this wedding cannot happen, that it will be doomed if it does. And as ever, as we've seen repeatedly happen in this episode, no one wants to speak to her, no one will listen to her. Like, this is happening, it's a runaway train now.
Yes, ma'am?
I need to speak to the Queen.
Oh yeah, and in this scene with the phone, it was quite difficult because obviously we don't film things chronologically. We were just filming the bit where I walk into the room and like pick up the phone and to make this phone call saying this wedding cannot happen, and I had to have a certain like energy with it, and it's quite hard to like find that from nowhere. I remember Corrin, the director, came up with this incredible thing where he hid the phone. So in the room, there are like 3 rooms, like filled with flowers and everything else, and before every take, he would hide the phone somewhere in the room. So yeah, the bit that you'll see, I'm like also trying to find the phone. I remember sometimes I couldn't find it for so long, and I was just walking around like, ah, but it worked, I think.
This wedding can't go ahead. It'll be a disaster for everyone.
Her Majesty is unavailable at the moment, but I shall...
I remember this was interesting because we did one take where because I said, oh, I feel like I want to like, there are all these flowers in this room, everything's perfect, everything's so ornate, and she's so angry at this point. This is really like the climax of her emotion that you see in this episode. Well, so far really, this is the angriest you've seen her get. Before then, I think it's just been like mounting despair. I said, I really want to like throw all these flowers away, you know? How dare these people send us flowers? They have no idea what's going on in this relationship behind these walls, what I'm going through. And Ben said, yeah, go for it, like mess the flowers up, like, and I really went for it. And I just like threw these flowers everywhere and destroyed effectively the whole room. And I remember he said, let's try it again. He said, I feel the emotion, I really like that, but I think she wouldn't let go that much. I think there is a part of her that knows she needs to still hold on, she needs to contain it, and actually that's kind of more painful to watch. And I think that ended up being the right thing, which was really interesting. Yeah, so you've seen Diana have all these ballet lessons, and they've kind of been fitting into the structure of her kind of etiquette classes and like having to learn all these things, and also having to very much contain and manage everything she's feeling. And she was a very expressive person, and I think loved performing, and she loved dancing. I think it's a way she found to express herself. And so in this scene, I remember Ben said, you know, her ballet teacher hasn't turned up, and she starts practicing, and then he was like, I just want you to let the music take you, and I want you to absolutely lose control. And when we were filming this, the day before, there was a girl who came to help me choreograph the ballet lesson. And then Ben said, oh, can we also choreograph a dance for when she loses control? And I thought about it, and I said, is it okay if we don't choreograph anything? Because I really want to just like completely lose it. I don't think I can choreograph that if you want me to like actually find that. And then I also said, is it okay if I pick the song? And he said, yeah, but I'm not sure what we're allowed to use. And I said, it doesn't matter. If that's okay, can I just like, I'll pick a random song? And he said, yeah, pick anything you want, and we can like change it. So I actually, although you hear here like a altered version of Elton John's song, but I was dancing to Cher, Do You Believe? So yeah, if you play that over this, that's actually what I'm dancing to. I remember they just set up the camera and we had these huge speakers and they just were pumping Cher into this massive ballroom, and I just like danced for 3 minutes without stopping. And I remember I fell to the floor and I felt ecstatic, and everyone was like, oh my God, that, like, I want to do that. That looked so fun. And then I remember Ben coming over and said, Emma, that was amazing. We're gonna have to do it again because you kept mouthing the lyrics. And we don't have the rights to the song. And it was the saddest thing ever because I'd like really gone for it and danced for 3 minutes, but I just kept being like, do you believe? But yeah, fun.
What?
I wanted to talk to you. I've had some thoughts.
About?
Us.
And at this point, they were in New Zealand, and Diana insisted that William could come on the tour with her, which doesn't normally happen. Obviously, understandably, as a mother with like a new baby, you would want your baby, and I think for Diana, William was a kind of support and a comfort to her, someone who she knew was, I guess, family, which she didn't feel like she got that kind of love, I guess, or bond with anyone else she was around. And so he came with her, and then Charles and like their relationship is very much breaking down at this point, and they are not really communicating very well, and it's kind of reached a head at this point. And Diana decides to confront him and have an honest conversation.
I have some things I'd like to discuss too. Would you like to go first?
Would make a nice change.
What does that mean?
It means you always go first.
What poppycock?
You're the Prince of Wales. You're born to go first.
I think what Josh and I and Julian, the director of episode 6, talked about a lot in the scene was kind of wanting to very much reveal how they both needed from each other basically the same thing, and therefore they were never really going to be able to provide that for each other, which is a really interesting dynamic to explore. I think they both had a big part of them that lacked a kind of support and love in quite a fundamental, like, parental way, I suppose, something that I think they both quite lacked in their childhoods. And so they both had that kind of void that needed to be filled, and they looked for that, I think, in maybe who they were with. And when you have two people looking for the same thing in one another, that's never really going to work. It was really interesting to explore actually them talking about it, because I think it's one of the only times, I think if ever, I think it is the only time you kind of see them come so close to having a constructive conversation about their relationship and their marriage, and it sort of works. It so nearly works, except there's this bit, because they talk about Camilla, and you really feel like viscerally all this like stored up anger that Diana has. But then there's this moment where you think, oh, this is brilliant. They're like finally being honest with each other, which is obviously the best foundation to anything. But
who patronise me and ignore me, but love her, presumably. Which is why the two of you are perfect for each other. So where do I fit in?
You fit in because you're my wife. And... because... I love you.
yeah, there's this moment and Charles says, because I love you. And it's so infuriating, because I think as an audience, when I read that in the script, I was like, oh my God, you know, this is the first time I think he's really said that to her. When we were working on it, when I was rehearsing it, we were very much talking about, finally Diana has basically got what she's hearing what she wanted to hear, which is amazing. But increasing, I think, as like the scene goes on, and certainly as the series moves forward, you very much realise that Charles was kind of maybe putting a band-aid, putting a plaster over a problem. He knows that that's what she needs to hear, and he knows that this is his way out of this very uncomfortable, confrontational conversation. And with that knowledge, this scene becomes very difficult, because you see Diana's like complete she's just, her relief, I suppose, at hearing that affirmation. Because really that's all she wants. I think that's really all she wanted. And actually I think it's what both of them wanted, is just that. But they could never properly give that to one another. Thank you very much for watching my action replay with British GQ, and I hope you enjoy season 4.